Hello, everybody, and nice to meet in this format. I'm very sorry Luigi is not with us, but we try. I will start a little bit saying what I believe the challenges would be for you and Romania in the next period. Mainly speaking about the cybersecurity center and the cybersecurity environment, but not only. What we have now, and it's available in Romania and EU, is you have a vision and we have values. That's a good point of start. We also have a proper governance and legal framework that we need to enforce in various countries. But we also need to mobilize the cyber business and the research ecosystem in order to create these synergies. And what the key word in cybersecurity is and will be cooperation in all the forms, be it inside EU or transatlantic. And let me underline something that would be last but not least. It's a challenge how we transform the weakest link in the first line of defense, meaning under weakest link, actually the people that work with IT devices, as we saw just before. So I wouldn't speak extensively about the center because I believe everybody around the table knows what the center does and what the center will do in the future. Maybe I just stress some points that we think it's important for what the center should do in the future. It's advocating a strong role and influence also for the member states and their position in the governmental body of the center of ECC, and ensure their relevant presence, because cybersecurity is a network, and to have a strong network is important to have strong actors in each and every country and have their voices around the table, and also bring the strengths that this center could and will build to the member countries. So we in Romania think this is relevant. Also, we think it's relevant to help ECC be up and running very fast and start to deliver on its mission and objectives. Because we build an institution that we all now addressing now, the elephant in the room maybe, needs a director and needs beside an active governing board and also an advisor committee that is the link between the business and the business community and the member states and the center. So we're looking forward on a transparent and fast selection of this director. Also, what I would add is that maybe you know, but our representative in the board, Mr. Duncan Panu, sent, I think yesterday or today, a letter explaining his vision and the Romanian vision for this center, stressing mainly the role of the board and how we effectively make the network of centers work, and also establishing a strategic advisory group that can work as a connector. So I'm looking forward to the discussion, not trying just to say that Romania tries to do all it's in her power to be a good host, but not only a good host, also a mediator between all the actors involved in this process. So we have a center that can deliver in not necessarily nice times around. So we need the center, and it should be running as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Well, we hope that it will be running. And now may I ask a very similar question to the Polish speaker, to the Polish participant in the panel. Mr. Silicki, could you please share with us some suggestions concerning the setup and inauguration of the center that we have heard so much a moment ago, the European Cybersecurity Competence Center. Microphone is off. We can see you talking, but unfortunately I can't hear you, I'm afraid.
Should be better.
Much better. Thank you. We can hear now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the invitation. Hello, everybody. Yeah, it's really, when I was hearing what was Maria-Manuela, Catrina said about the launching of ECCC, I just remember how ENISA, which is the European Agency for Cybersecurity, what ENISA was doing in the first phases of life of this agency more than 15 years ago. And yes, all those elements which was mentioned are very important because that kind of bodies rely on participation of each member states. So each member states delegates representatives and Commission also, European Commission. But which is crucial also for the development of the agency or the center is to establish the advisory group, as it is named in ENISA, or any other working groups consisted of members from different, affiliations, private sector, academia, and standardization bodies or research development bodies. And yeah, I have the experience working for ENISA, being part of the management board, and I think here when we are talking about the launching of ECCC, it's a big job to be done in front of Romania, and I'm congratulating Romania to have this center in Bucharest. And what I would like to stress is that as far as I know, the ECC work program is very much connected to the work program of Digital Euro for Cybersecurity Fund. And this is very important because when you read the plans for funding the cybersecurity development and innovation in the European Union for the coming years, it's a good sign and good news for all partners from all member states. And let me only point out one of the initiatives. When you examine this work programs, you can find the provisions and ideas of creating the European Cyber Shield, and that kind of initiative is consisted on many levels, on many pillars. But one of these I would like to mention. It's idea of creating the network or the platforms for cooperation and collaboration between so-called SOCs, so security operational centers, from different member states, but also from different sectors. And that kind of cooperation, when the private sector is developing tools and share the information, like threat intelligence information, among others, with others from public sector and private sector, for me is a really good example for boosting the cybersecurity development and innovation, because cybersecurity area is an ideal area for investing in R&D, because threats are developing so fast, because technology is developing, because in the future we will be all reliable, or we will be relying on the fast developments of automatic tools using machine learning or artificial intelligence to combat all those threats. So for me, this ECCC work, which began is on the preliminary phase, is a big chance for each of us, each member states, each companies from private sector to be involved in this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we've heard of the SOCs, the Security Operational Centers, I have a question now to Mr. Mirosław Maj about the importance of public-private cooperation in sharing intelligence on cyber threats in the domain of especially those SOCs, but also CERT, in particular at this time, at the time when digitalization is on the rise, and so are the threats.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the invitation. The importance of the cyber threat intelligence data were already mentioned by Krzysztof, Silicki, and I can only confirm that probably talking about the cyber threat intelligence, we probably talk about a very good example of the public-private partnership and generally innovation and development. And maybe to understand this is good to have a short history background on this, because this is absolutely the part of the overall discussion on the general information sharing. And we know very well, being in this business for many years now, that information sharing, like probably in other sectors as well, not only limited to cybersecurity, is the natural incentive, natural topic for any kind of cooperation. But also the truth is, from the critical point of view, that for many years, it was just the declaration of the willing to cooperate together with other organizations, and that's also made this particular topic a little bit a buzzword in the sector. I think this is quite similar to other sectors. So the things, from my perspective, from my memory, changed like between 10-15 years ago, when we started to add very important description to this information sharing, like that we want to have something concrete. This particular one in the cybersecurity sector was the actionable. The word actionable probably changed very much in the whole cyber threat in the intelligence ecosystem. We understood that we don't only need information sharing as a whole, as some idea for cooperation, but we need something concrete which would really will bring value to our ecosystems, to the infrastructure which we are obliged to protect. So that was very important. And from that time, we see the boost, the fostering of this kind of cooperation, and we can bring many examples of successful cooperation, public-private partnership, generally in innovation. Let me just remind you two of them. The first one is quite concrete. I mean, I'm talking about the MIS platform. So the platform which is used for the CSIR community, the general incident management community, for sharing very actionable information about the about the potential threats. And as a matter of fact, we should remind also that this particular project was started in the rather public sector. So organizations like Belgian defense sector, NATO in general, the European CSER, then of course Silicki from Luxembourg, and then joined by other organizations also from private sector, show how good could be the cooperation between these two sectors in innovation and proposing very concrete and very useful model and platform for general cooperation. Another thing is the fact that if we look at the big names in terms of the cybersecurity services provision around the world, wherever we see big names which are ready to cooperate with, big names from the private sector, and they are ready to cooperate with public sector in terms of providing very critical information on potential threats for national security. So this is also a very good example of how responsible we can be in terms of protecting our whole digital life, which becoming almost our normal life, and we probably understand this nowadays. In these days, actually, when we see these threats which are in the air. So this is very good examples. Also, particular examples of Estonia, Georgia, of Ukraine. This is all about the public-private partnership and also international cooperation. So I think, cyber threat intelligence is so important case study to understand how we can use some very important factors in the developing in cooperations to boost this cooperation. From my perspective, I probably would mention four of them very shortly, because I guess we still have some time to discuss them. First of all, is of course we should look for the very important fields of cooperation, not theoretical ones, the ones which we really believe that they are game changers. So like cyber threat intelligence in the past, and the history proved that it was a real choice. Yeah, so we use this system. The second, of course, we always, with all projects, we say that the top management support is so important. In this particular topic, I think it's especially important because mostly we do things on the operational level. So good transfer of this awareness, knowledge to the top management, like how important, what the real value could be brought by the good cooperation, actionable cooperation. It is so important to explain. Because of this public and private sectors and various objectives and goals to achieve by these sectors, we also should respect our both sides' needs. I would describe them, because of course, as I said, we are responsible. So we probably, especially for critical aspects, we shouldn't have problems to understand each other and to cooperate closely. But anyway, in normal life, there are some business limits. There are some information protection limits. So we should understand both sides to do it. And the last, and of course not this, it is the special treatment of the critical information, critical innovation, or any critical aspects in terms of the national and international security needs. And again, we probably understand this very well nowadays in the shadow of the potential threats from various directions around.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Mai mentioned understanding each other and also spoke about this defense milieu, or rather cybersecurity milieu of society. I wonder, and this is definitely a question to Anett, Mádi-Nátor, What is the role of women, and how are women included into these actions, into these activities, into that society, we could definitely say? And what is the need? Well, definitely there is the need, but could you say something about the need to include women in the new EU approach, which is, of course, driven by the European Cybersecurity Competence Center?
Yes, hello. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope you can hear me properly. Can you please verify?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thank you, because I may have some connectivity issues, but I will try my best to keep myself in the line. So, first of all, we all understand that Europe is actually proceeding to formulate a very stable environment for cybersecurity from administrative perspective, which means that EU is actually building its own architecture, let's say, or infrastructure to support cybersecurity at least on 3 levels, which is the strategic level, operational level, and tactical level. So this is, I believe, is clear for everyone. And besides that, with the creation of the European Cybersecurity Competence Center and the networks that will have to support the research and innovation ecosystem of Europe, and which will be, regarding the number, will be approximately, I don't know, between 600 and 700 centers, cybersecurity centers. So first and foremost, I believe what we need to discuss is how these centers and how this new ecosystem will be supported by the relevant and much needed number of experts. And I believe this is an absolutely natural connection point where we can include the discussion of how to include women in this new ecosystem, or newly built or rebuilt ecosystem. It's quite obvious that if we think about how Europe is structured from gender perspective, like half of the European population is of men and the other half is of women, it's quite natural that we have to think about how to include the other half, which is the women half of this population, especially when it is also discussed quite constantly that Europe needs much more experts than we actually have. And by understanding the ratio between men and women in Europe when it comes to cybersecurity experts, to my best knowledge, the number is obviously different in each and every country, but the average is somehow like 80% of cybersecurity experts are men and 20% or not more than 20% of cybersecurity experts are women. It is a real question and a real issue to address, that we need to include women in the cybersecurity ecosystem, also in the research and innovation field. And if you take the official, let's say, agenda and the official aims of the European Cybersecurity Competence Center, which is to help EU retain and develop cybersecurity capabilities, especially in the research and innovation field, I believe it comes quite naturally that women need to provide relevant opportunities. And when I say relevant opportunities, I mean targeted opportunities. So do we see that at the moment? I have to tell you that I'm not convinced. This may be harsh, and it may actually be too blunt, or may sound blunt as an opinion. Nevertheless, I need to express my my views on this. The European Cybersecurity Competence Center at the moment liaises with relevant European entities in the cybersecurity ecosystem. That is fine. But to my best knowledge, the ECCC still lacks its proper agenda to include women either into the pilot project or into the national competence centers or into the competence centers that are created at member states. So it would be very useful to understand how the European Union, how the Commission and how the ECCC addresses this question. for many reasons, which we already mentioned, and for one additional reason. A couple of years ago, when we established the European Women for Cyber Foundation and the initiative itself, this was established in collaboration with the European Commission. And between two of us, let's say, the European Commission and the Women for Cyber Europe Foundation and Initiative, we have a very good working level cooperation. We cooperate at least.
Hello? I believe that the cooperation may be good, but somehow today the internet doesn't want to cooperate with us. Thank you very much for that. I hope, Anett, you can hear us. And when you said blunt, I really thought that you were simply sincere. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is precisely what we need here at Cybersec. We need sincerity. Speaking of sincerity, can I ask now the last of the panelists, Ulrich, about some more words about cooperation? Cooperation was probably the only word mentioned here by everybody. And this case in particularly in relation to small and medium-sized enterprises in Benelux.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you also for the invitation and for having us here this afternoon. Yeah, I think the technical challenges are, to some extent, maybe also a little bit a perspective of how sometimes cybersecurity in Europe might be a bit of a challenge overall. So let me first try to address a couple of ideas in terms of digital technologies. Digital, I think, is all over the place. We are considering the digital transformation for many different companies, both services and environments, which is obviously taking an absolute necessity when it comes to cybersecurity. So everybody considering to go digital these days, whether they are small or large, will need to strategically consider to onboard on their cybersecurity. I think that's a basic means to go on about and do that. And I think some of the current developments in Europe are supporting those. Just to give an example in terms of potential public-private partnerships that we see there and where we do participate in are the up-and-coming European digital innovation hubs, where there's actually funding being made available for definitely AI type of projects that support digitalization, but also and hopefully much more of cybersecurity support to those different companies. So that means that in this case, Europe is funding those projects for about 50%, and then the other 50% coming sometimes from the member states. Unfortunately, in Flanders, Belgium, we cannot rely on this to find other means to get to that 50% of funding. But we will be doing also that support to companies that are looking for digitalization. Another route in terms of that space is how can manufacturing companies actually work on the digitalization world. And I think there, especially in everything in relation to traditional production, manufacturing, digitalization is definitely one of the top priorities. But they are lagging behind in terms of their past when it comes to putting down digital systems and systems that allow for digital manufacturing. So definitely also when it comes to cybersecurity, they have a couple of steps to take in addition there. In some of the research projects which are going around, also supported by the public in this case, we do see and we have been working with many manufacturing companies and cybersecurity companies in providing what we then call a cybersecurity pathway for manufacturing companies and trying to help them understand what the different cybersecurity challenges are that they need to cope with. As another example in the same region is where we see the impact on, for instance, things like robotics. Robots, you could imagine, are pretty much digital. However, the way that they are being controlled and steered is still in a very traditional automation manner, and therefore not so much highly digitized. So there are a lot of revolutionary changes have to happen in order to make sure that there's also cybersecure robots. So in that sense, I think there's many different types of activities already happening when it comes to support for those activities, thanks to the public. Now, for instance, when it comes to the cybersecurity market in itself, that also still needs to further digitize. And we see definitely most of the cybersecurity companies around in Europe that are looking to implement and trying to use different types of artificial intelligence technologies. There's many different flavors of them, going from machine learning to natural language processing, and basically understanding every behavior that potentially a cyber criminal or an incident could cause. So for all of those, especially, there's also lots of additional involvement needed and lots of innovation which is needed, which is thankfully also thanks to the public being supported in terms of its research capabilities. However, having said all of this, there's definitely a lot of work still to be done in all of those domains. And on top of this, in the domain of things like the devices. So devices will have to digitize again and further digitize. So I'm specifically considering things like IoT devices where we see that different instruments are being put into operations without having really scrutinized them when it comes to cybersecurity. So improvements have to happen there specifically, and to make sure that this can be done. Certification is happening also from a public authority space. So maybe some suggestions that I can.
Could I ask you just for one final suggestion? We are already in the time of the next panel. I'm sorry. I know it's not your fault.
No, sure. Let me maybe suggest a couple of things, both for the public in this case, as well as then for the ECC. So I think in the first place, I hope that in this case, the public authorities will try to adopt a little bit more to the speed of business. And that specifically when it comes to both research, but also in operational domains. And I think in this case as well, when it comes to sharing intelligence, we do see that usually from the industry a bit as a one-way street. And so hopefully together with the ECC, we can improve that. And secondly, also with the ECC, we hope to be able to adopt some innovations in that particular domain. And I can give you a very concrete example where we have been using privacy-enhancing technologies like multi-party computation, specifically to allow for companies that share their assets and asset lists in a very detailed way to come up with the compliance towards the NIS directive, and to try to endorse those on a European level.
Thank you very
finally,
much, Ulrich. Yeah,
right.
I'm very sorry, but we're really, in the time of the following panel. I would like to thank you all very, very much. Thank you also for waiting for the panel to start. I'm really deeply grateful, Maria-Manuela, Anett, Ulrich, Mirosław, and Krzysztof. And please stay with us. And all of you ladies and gentlemen listening to us, there'll be a very short technical break, and I'll be back after it with you. And then the next panel comes in.